and this is Ted Hicks for Late Night Parents. It's been a while since we recorded a podcast with my longtime friend, Shawn Armour, True Armour, just all around. When you've known someone for such a long time, and you guys can just sit down and talk about anything. But that's a true brotherhood. That's how things are. So, without anything else, Shawn, how are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Man, it's been a while. I was talking with Eric earlier today. We was just talking about the craziness. And the beauty is that we've all been friends for so long.
Right.
You know how you don't have to talk with someone every day, but you can pick up, and it's like everything is all good?
Exactly. You fall back into this connection, yeah.
It's like the soap operas. It's like you don't watch them for 10 years, and then you turn it on, and within inside of 4 or 5 days, you're up to speed.
You're caught up. Exactly.
You're just like, oh, okay. Not much has happened. But what's going on in your world?
Things are quiet. Trying to do more art, but, try not to wig out about the things you see. Everybody seems to be losing their mind.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's a snowflake to everybody, right?
Everyone's a snowflake.
Exactly. So my world now revolves around, if there's nothing new under the sun, then I've seen it before, so now can I spot it coming down the line if I've lived long enough to learn it, you know what I mean? But yeah, what are you going to do? Some stuff I don't see coming.
So Virginia is still treating you good?
Yeah, it's quiet. It's 70 degrees here today, man. It's beautiful.
Oh. Dude, can I tell you, New York, it's Christmas Eve, or it's Christmas Eve. Eve.
Right.
And it's rainy, it's cold. You're trying to get into the mall. Everyone's got a bad attitude, and you say, yeah, I'm still in New York.
It took me, I've been out in New York for 2 years. It took me about a year and a half to kind of decompress, and
sure.
It's New York is in your blood, it's in your bones. You won't ever not be New York, you know what I mean? Wherever you're from, whether that's, we happen to be New Yorkers, but wherever you're from, you're never not going to be that. And when you slide into another environment, it takes a bit of adapting. So yeah, now I see the weather in New York, and I just have to kind of go, huh.
So when you made the transition, did you find yourself having to kind of slide back a little bit because you were kind of leaning forward being that New Yorker and coming down to a different neighborhood?
Yeah, I was back a lot. There were things that I missed, and every time I went back, there were people that I had to see. Mm-hmm. And like I said, it took about 2 years to get it out of my system. Now when I go back, I'm like, I more look forward to coming home, being around my stuff, and that kind of thing, versus when I was looking forward to getting back and getting a Reuben at 4 a.m, like New Yorkers do.
Right.
But
I'm told because I left New York for a bit, and I told my wife that we didn't give it enough time because I'm told you need to give it 3 years.
Yeah, really? There's a formula for this? Okay.
That's what I was told. I was told you need to give it 3 years, and at the 3-year mark, you would have worked everything out of your system to the point where you're like, oh, I haven't been home in a while, and I don't miss it at all because it's a new, different type of lifestyle. It's slower. It's, the rat race is gone. You're out of the tri-state.
Right. That makes sense to me.
Kind of stuff like that.
That makes sense to me. That gives you enough time to, it's like being a new driver. Yeah, you get your license when you're 16 or so.
Yes.
But nobody really trusts you until you've got like a couple of years under your belt.
Of course.
And because that gives you enough to have driven in any kind of weather, whether it's late night or whether it's, sunny days or rainy storms. So by the time you've been driving 3 years, more people feel you. So yeah, I guess that makes sense. Maybe 3 years is a healthy mark, but because you can always move back. Quite frankly,
that's true, and that's what we did. We didn't wait the 3 years.
Yeah.
She kind
of. But sometimes immediately. I don't want to. Sometimes immediately this was a bad idea. So
right.
It depends on your flow.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there are some people listening now going, I knew it, and they've only been out for like 15 minutes.
Right. You got to give it longer than 15 minutes.
Exactly. New York minutes are literally like a fraction of a second. So, like my nephew comes through, he goes, all right, I'm coming to see you, Unc. I'm like, all right, fine. When you gonna be here? He's like, in a few. 5 hours later, he comes through talking, and that's the kind of like laid back kind of vibe that you get when you're out of New York. And I'm still learning that. I'm like, so now when he comes through, I'm like, half an hour? He'll go, oh no, give me 4 or 5 hours. And I'm like, all right.
Okay.
So we'll watch the late game together, something like that. You know what I mean? Okay. But it's just kind of like it doesn't have to be the next 5 minutes. I've got, I get around. You'll know that I'm coming through. Meanwhile, me and my New York mindset, I'm like, when, where, now?
Yeah.
I never realized that was a thing about me until I left.
It was so ironic that when I was down at Virginia Beach for my nephew's graduation,
right.
and I knew you lived somewhere near, and I said, okay, if he lives an hour, or and I think my cutting point was going to be about 90 minutes to 2 hours. I was going to say, if he's 2 hours away, I'll drive out there, catch up with him. And only to find that I was like 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes away from you was so crazy.
Lucky, man. Sometimes, the universe conspires with you, right?
It does. It does.
Seeing you was such a boost to my energies, That conversation was healthy, and this is what family is all about, right?
Yeah, it's the same way, man. I was just like, wait. I said, there's no way, because, the one good thing is being our age and knowing the amount of people we know, chances are you go somewhere, you're going to know somewhere that lives probably where you're visiting. And you're like, hey, let me see if I can catch up for dinner or catch up for just to talk for a few minutes or, to drink a beer or something like that. So as always, it was good. And for you to come, when you came to New York to come see me and just to hang out for the day, you get to see what my day consists of, which wasn't much. Just sitting around like, well, all right, what you want to do? You're like, all right, let's walk around.
Yeah, it was good.
But
I got to feel like a tourist being shown, like come to town and see some stuff. I was like, wow, this is amazing.
A fellow New Yorker that's a tourist. I don't know if that's an oxymoron or not.
No. I actually got lost on the subway too, like a tourist. Yeah, not paying attention.
Well, you know what'll trip you up? West Broadway, like, these certain type of streets, and you're just like, well, wait a minute, I think he said Broadway, and you're like, oh no, he said West Broadway.
Yeah, those old colonial streets of downtown.
Yes.
Yeah, I always get mangled.
Yes.
Big enough for a horse and carriage kind of street.
Oh my.
But yeah, it's funny because being from a place, there's a lot of things that you don't see being from there, and then like you move back. Like the next time I go back, I'm like, maybe I'll go see the Statue of Liberty.
How many times have you seen it when you were living here? Never, right?
No, never. Exactly. Now all of a sudden I'm like, I'm interested. Just don't make any sense how the mind works.
Never.
So yeah.
And just want to let our listeners know this is Late Night Parents with Shawn Armour, Ted Hicks. This is your Christmas Eve show, and for the most of the folks that will hear it during the week, it will be on Christmas or after. We want to thank our listeners and everyone that plays our show all over. But, hey, there's been a lot of stuff since the last time we talked, and the most prevalent thing is And I want to make sure that we approach this the right way, this Me Too movement, where Weinstein, and it just became everyone. Even if you didn't partake in that type of misconduct, you knew about it.
Yeah.
What's worse?
Well, are we having a real conversation, or are we sparing people feelings? Because I can get into it if you want me to.
Hey, I put it this way: as long as we don't hurt any of the victims, but I'm all for a conversation.
Exactly. So let's look at the history of like that place, right?
Okay.
Like now that place is an anomaly of places. So if you go back to the first time I remember anything sketchy going on in Hollywood, and we're not even talking about the race stuff, there was a guy called Fatty Arbuckle who, he was kind of like John Candy of silent movies, and he threw these parties, and one time a young Hollywood starlet got drunk and died at one of his parties, and it ruined him. It was like trial of the century. So this kind of behavior goes back. And there's legends about the place, right? Casting couches. We who are not from that place know these terms.
Yes.
So nothing lasts forever. So when this thing cracked open, I didn't really have a lot of faith that it would stay around, and I have to admit I really underestimated the sheer number of people, women, that it registered with, and it struck me now, like when you ride the New York subway, and people go, oh, weird stuff happens on the subway, and you as a guy goes, I never saw any weird stuff. Yeah, fights and, smelly homeless people, but that's about it. But women get a whole different experience with the New York City subway, and you have to go, what, really? So I'm guilty of that. But it became like a vacuum cleaner. Like any man accused of anything had to go. And now I think that women are coming around to like all these things aren't equal, right? And like Louis C.K., I was talking to somebody, and the thing about Louis C.K. was he wasn't Matt Lauer, right? Matt Lauer's at work in a business environment with a door locking you in and pulling sketchy moves on you, apparently, from what the talk is from the Today Show, right?
Yes,
versus Louis C.K., right? Versus Louis C.K., who's at night in a stand-up comedy around, I'm not trying to make excuses for the guy, but around in a different environment, drugs and alcohol, around comedians trying to force each other to push an envelope, to do this stuff, to this frat boy humor. I more get, even though I don't make any excuses for it, I more understand it in the Louis C.K. environment of late night professional stand-up comedy world of drinking and, you know what I mean, versus Matt Lauer, right? So you get Harvey Weinstein, who I also put in this business executive mode of a guy in a suit, kind of like pulling sketchy tricks that everybody knew about. So, yeah, man, I think once you begin to compartmentalize this thing correctly, I don't see how anybody, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't see how anybody can, I've run into like a wall with my thought here. But essentially, the idea of due process, you're innocent till proven guilty, makes more sense when some of these people shouldn't even be in the pool. You know what I mean? Like, innocent till proven guilty makes sense because of the weight of what we're doing here. Some of this stuff is bush league, frat boy stupidity, which you should be yelled at and condemned for, and then allowed to go back to your life. You know what I mean? Like, it's stupid, but it's not criminal. And the environment matters too. So, like I said, if you're in an office, Matt Lauer, on a 9-to-5 gig wearing a suit, and you're essentially hunting these women down in a locked environment of the business environment, nobody needs you around. But, you know, on this other environment of hyper-liberal people in a super-liberal environment where we know that there's a lot of drugs going on, a lot of money to be had, and wild parties and all this stuff, you know, there's something to be said for what's going on in that environment as well. You know what I mean?
No. I understand.
Some people might be up for it in a minute, and then when people found out, I heard you did that with so-and-so, and then people want to go, oh, no, that wasn't what you thought it was something totally different. And then, you know, then they make a felony case out of something that everybody was for when they were all hanging out and being, you know, adults. But now nobody wants, you know what I'm saying?
No, I understand what you're saying. Here's my point of view, that it seems like it was a culture. Everyone was about it.
Yeah.
Everyone was about it. Everyone turned a blind eye. And I'm like, geez, this is everyone? Yeah. Because 3-4 years ago, it was Bill Cosby was slipping Quaaludes into drinks. And that's
right.
And then it was quiet. And then when this came about, and it's like the storm doors just busted open, and it's everyone. Everyone that you've known growing up as a child has had some type of sexual misconduct. I mean, I think the thing that took me and this is a horrible thing, but the thing that hit me the most was like Charlie Rose. I mean, we grew up watching Charlie Rose.
Yeah.
We grew up watching these people, and you're just like, well, wait a minute, really?
But isn't this the rap on powerful men and money?
I guess so.
You know, Mad Men was semi-documentary. Women complained that they could not get ahead, you know, and, you know, you don't hear about the women who played the game, you know, who met their husbands in the workplace. Right. You know, some people do fall in love, but the idea that now you have to have all these policies about dating in the workplace was because when people were dating in the workplace, it was fraught with all these perils when it first kicked out, right? And then there was a backlash of, well, no, I wanted to date him, but they fired us both, and now we got married, and now we're suing. So now, you know, they relaxed some of it. And then what happens, like always, when no one polices something, you know, you run into one or two things. It runs amok, and you have to rein it in like a bush or some kind of crazy thornish plant, right? So now you have to rein it in because no one was looking at what was going on in the workplace of just, you know, adults being adults, and not everybody sues, right? And people meet their mates at work, so it gets to this point where you're just happy to keep it quiet by paying everybody out, and you write, like, you set aside a sum of money in your budget as a corporation because you know you're going to be paying it out. I think you and right now you're at a moment of, you know, maybe we should have the hardest date laws, period. And if you violate them, fire the men and the women because it's not worth it. And then again, it'll maybe in another 30 years, it'll relax again, and someone's got to prune back this tree. But I think it's likely I'm about to say a project. It's likely a byproduct of people getting really loose in the workplace. All this hangout, socialized drinking. You treat you treat work like it's high school. And just because the work is done doesn't mean, you know, you should be so familiar with everybody, so intimate with everybody. And granted, familiarity is bred by close contact. People who work close will get feelings for each other, but surely, there's a way to go about it that it doesn't get to this point, right? So you can have a set of policies in where your stars, your $50 million a year Matt Lauers, knows that he won't be protected, as well as people down the rung who know that their behavior will also be scrutinized. But once you're connected on these levels, people look out for you, and I think that's the problem. That's a larger part of the problem. All these people who are under scrutiny now interviewed each other, they hung out with each other, they golf together, right? It's a very small window of people who make that kind of money, who hang out together, who always see each other at the New Year's Rockin' the Beeve events, at the 4th of July events, at the presidential signing-ins and the Pope inaugurations, and all these things. It's a very small group of high-profile media people, whether it's before, in front of the camera and behind the camera, and news people who have to interact with these famous entertainer people, actors and singers. So it's all very go along to get along. So when the dominoes started falling, one of the interesting things about this, when the dominoes started falling, was that Matt Lauer interviewed, who used to be on Fox News, Bill O'Reilly, who had
Bill O'Reilly
go for this, right?
Yes.
So it's like, and meanwhile, Charlie Rose is on another channel discussing it with two ladies.
Yes.
On his morning show, like, it's just. But I don't know what you do, because then some guys came clean, and they got the same treatment as the guys who were waited to be outed. So
I got something to share with you.
Yeah.
Now, we've been friends. It's very closely. It's getting close to almost 40 years.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So we show our age. All right.
Yeah.
But I met my wife in the workplace. But that was 20 years ago.
Right.
And I'm just sitting here saying, could you meet your spouse in the workplace today with the way things are nowadays? I don't know.
Like it's like Jurassic Park. Love finds a way. Like life finds a way.
Right.
Look, if you have a man and a woman in a setting with more than one wall and a floor, if they like each other, you could actually get rid of that wall. If you have a floor, whether it is a dirt floor or a grass floor, and if you have men and women in close proximity, nature will do what nature does, right? So
right.
This is why I'm not saying that there should be a ban on workplace relationships. If you are a painter, and who else would you rather hang out with but painters? So it's more
right.
likely that you will, you know what I mean? Versus, you're likely in an environment for because you share reasons for being in that environment, even if they're just simple economics. We both hate our boss and we're struggling to get along. Let's struggle to get along together. Perfectly legitimate. What happens here is shady people can hide, like ISIS uses civilian hostages. While you are as righteous as can be in the workplace, and you meet a nice lady who you want to be righteous with, while that's going on, there's all this kind of, I like so-and-so in accounting. I just want to run through all the chicks in accounting, and then maybe all the chicks in the IT department. And, look at so-and-so. Her XYZ, look as fat as a Christmas goose, and it goes on and on, right? So now you got that kind of element in there of boys being boys who think that, well, if he can go over there and date, who says every woman likes to be asked out that way? So now, now you get into this kind of, this honest and noble thing is the same thing as this thing that I had right here because I say this. And, I'm, as a business owner, I don't want to make this a legal matter, more lawyers, now I'm just kind of like nobody's allowed to date in here. Or, I want waivers signed by, now you got, and you get into this ridiculous level of behavior that doesn't suit adults, you know what I mean? Because the I don't know if it's loopholes in these office romance policies, but if there is a loophole, instead of spackling them over so people can still meet their spouses in the workplace, they either let them ride or they shut the lady up, or they forbid all manner of everything, and then it explodes. It just, the whole environment doesn't lend itself to doing it. I think you take a mighty chance, especially after this. When did this thing start? This thing started in late September, early October, right?
Weinstein? Or we're talking about Bill Cosby?
No, well, we're talking about when it broke. So I'm guessing the Weinstein was the ripping of it.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's and here's the thing that I was thinking. Tell me what you think about this. I was like, Bill Cosby, people looked at him as America's dad, and there was a mistrial. He wasn't found not guilty. It was a mistrial, and the DA said they're going to retry him. Mm-hmm. And I was like, they're not going to put 90-year-old blind Bill Cosby in jail. After this Weinstein thing, right, Bill Cosby looks like he is going to prison. He went from last year looking, at first nobody believed that they were going to put this old guy on trial. Right. And now I don't think, man, I don't think it looks good for Bill Cosby. I think this environment is a crazy environment. And I think now they just began talking about gradient of this kind of thing. Mm. From not all things aren't equal in some of these people. I mean, they're talking police investigating Harvey Weinstein and Brett Ratner and Russell Simmons versus, from what I understand, Matt Lauer. I may have to recheck that. But versus, nobody's investigating Louis C.K., nobody's investigating Charlie Rose, so it's kind of like, does the punishment fit the crime in some of these things? Nobody's investigating Tavis Smiley. Is
it because they come out and said, yes, it was me, I did it, I've done bad things, versus some of the folks that are defiant?
I think that gives you going back to what I was saying earlier, that gives you the company just the knee-jerk reaction to get rid of them, to cut ties. But you're still going to need a lawyer because now he's going to sue. You know what I mean? So right. It's that kind of thing versus Tavis Smiley, who they just said, we conducted an investigation and you're fired. And he was like, oh, you misread all of this. Nobody talked to me and I'm not going quietly. So now you still have to get a lawyer to defend the Tavis Smiley case, right? Surely there's a way to handle this without being knee-jerk and ridiculous. And this is what I think the office policies of these romances are. They're kind of knee-jerk and ridiculous, or they're utterly ignored. It's like, I don't know, maybe you should put 10 women in the room and ask them what do they think the sexual policy should be for the country, and then give it to like 8 guys and go, would you stand up with these policies? And guys go, this is ridiculous, and then send it back to the ladies and go, some people have a problem with this one and that one, and then you can refine it, and everybody's happy. But it looks like everything always ends with like lawyers and legal maneuvering. Even this silly thing of, hey, I like, Mary, would you like to go see a movie with me after work? And she goes, yeah. You asked her out once. She said, yeah, once. There's no harassment there, right? But some people will still say there's no dating in the workplace. Whereas, use me for an example. I'll come into the workplace and I'll hit on everybody 7 times. And people go, you have been reported 10 times. True, right. What is wrong with you? It shouldn't take me being reported 10 times by everybody in the workplace to get out of here. Even the guys are going, true the problem. You know what I'm saying? Get Shawn out of here. He's an idiot. But you keep him around. And it's, you know, it's, I just think that it's an easy fix if adults cared to fix it and didn't want to be popular with it. Because all things are not equal. Some people should be fired outright. Some people are bad for the work environment, and some people, you know, deserve a second chance.
But let me jump in here because you never answered my question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my question was, I said I was providing computer support 20 years ago, and the person I was providing computer support to, I wound up getting married to. Is that even legit nowadays? Can you even have that conversation nowadays? Is everything
I think you can. I think
it
depends on how it. I think it depends on how it unfolds. Like I said, if you ask her out once and she goes, yeah, there is no harassment, right? You took a pitch and she caught the pass and you're both in the end zone. That happens in the world. Hey, would you like to go to a movie or a dinner? And this is how relationships start.
Right.
Whether you're on a bus stop or at work, and she goes, sure, but no one has a problem with that. So you're righteous. But some businesses will still go, that is inappropriate. We don't want that in our workplace. There are no dating statutes in people's works, and so you both could have been fired, or you would have had to have this illicit affair because you wanted to go to the movies and see if you were compatible, right? So you could still get away with that, I think, in the modern world because you've asked once and she said yes once. What about the guys who asked twice? Sometimes, you know, my mother has, my dad actually has a story about how he met my mother, which is quirky and funny, right? But he met her because my uncle, Sonny, he was helping my Uncle Sonny move, and she lived down the street from where my Uncle Sonny was, and my Uncle Sonny knew her, and my dad went over and talked to her. Just that simple, just kind of like randomness. Oh, there's a pretty girl I see. Oh, his best friend goes, oh, I know her. She lives down the street. Go talk to her. And then, you know, my dad goes and talks to her. Years later, you know, we have this family. Right. Because he went and talked to her.
Right.
In the work environment, what seems to be going on is there's a lot of sexual politicking that we know goes on in Hollywood. You know, go along to get along, you'll get this role if you'll, you know, we know this happens. So then when people start throwing around these terms, you really need to make sure that it's not anger, it's not sour grapes. It is what they say it is, which is why I put that Hollywood dynamic in one section, right? It's not the same box for me. In a separate box, I have people like us, right? Average, everyday working guys who may work in offices or may work out in the field doing whatever, rigging lights, Con Ed, you know, police work, fire work, you know, UPS work, whatever it may be, office work. And you run across somebody, whether she's in shipping and you're loading your truck up for UPS, or she's in accounting and you're doing IT services, or you're in accounting and she sees you and goes, hey, you know, I'm having a party. You should really come down. And you're like, yeah, I think she kind of hit him. And your friend goes, oh, yeah, you should go. You know, all legitimate. I think the problem remains me asking you out incessantly, you know, me having power over your position where you feel like you have to say yes. You know, me sexually politicking you. And if you're game for it, doesn't mean every other woman in the office is game for it. So, like, you may have said he walked into his office and pulled out his PUD, you know, so you wrote an HR complaint, but the other 6 girls that he did this to didn't, you know. And of the 6, 2 didn't have a problem with it and went along with it, so he thinks that he's good in the workplace. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's this idea of all these things not being equal, and the same technique you use to solve it all is what I have a problem with. Like I said, I go back to the Louis C.K. thing. He wasn't in the offices of HBO where his show is doing this. He was in a nightclub setting with all, alcohol and drugs and all the other nonsense of fame and getting your act together in a nightclub setting. While I don't approve of doing that, that to me is not the same as. And he didn't, mind you, these women, he didn't. Actually, I think one of them may have been a writer for something.
What was he doing? He exposed himself? What did Louis? It's just been so much.
Exposed himself to these women in like this comedy club. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to be totally off point, but my point is setting and context matters. And in this environment of everybody has to go, it's gonna be a refraction on this, right? Where then the men won't hire women or whatever gains women have made in the workplace will be I don't know, maybe compartmentalized since you don't want to lose these women. So then you get all these women in this workplace working together, and then all of a sudden their projects aren't getting done because whether you know it or not, you reverted back to an all-boys network of guys who golf together who don't want women around. And the women that they do want around will be a totally different type of women. You know what I mean? Like women who will just kind of like keep their mouths shut and not rock the boat and be quiet on what they see. And those few women, because there won't be a lot of those women around, will essentially be keepers to this thing. And before you know it, I mean, I don't know. I think the major problem with the Me Too movement is everybody can accuse everybody, right? It's sort of like the Black Lives Matter movement in the sense that there was no head of it, so anybody can go, Black Lives Matter stands for this, and people are like, no, it doesn't. So as you do this thing and you try and clean up these areas, there's buzz going on about academia, journalists in Hollywood, and everybody's everyday working regular life. I think the first thing that's going to happen is they're going to look at their sexual policies in the workplace, see if they've been letting guys skate, and they're going to clean house. And then the second part of that will be dealing with how many women can they safely get away with keeping around, you know what I mean? Because all these guys, I really think we're part of the system, and they're not all going. Some people who are in charge are still going to be in charge. They'll just augment their systems.
It's hitting every industry.
Yeah.
One by one, whether it's the church, it's already been at the church, academia, Hollywood,
church,
private sector, you name it.
So what do you think it is? Do you think it's the power of absolute power corrupts you? Like you talk about the church and what they got away with. You think about rich guys in Hollywood and what you can get away with. You think of like rich senators in Washington and what they can get away with. I mean, do you think this is what it is? I mean, I don't see a lot of middle management guys at Burger King getting away with this kind of stuff. Do you think?
Now, you said that to get a rise out of me because you were cracking a joke. Like, no, it's the more powerful people that, hey, I can do everything. And no, if I'm the cook of the French fry machine, no, I'm not going to feel that way. It's people that have these positions that are out of control, that think they can do whatever they want to do, and they've been doing it for so many years that they're just like, oh, this is the way, this is just how it is.
Yeah. I mean,
and the one point I will say for this, 2 points. Tavis, and I'm a big fan of Tavis. I know he was anti-Obama and everything else like that. I love his business aspect, but you're sitting there dating your subordinates and just running through them like hot butter, maybe that's not a good decision. You know,
yeah.
maybe that's not. And then secondly, Harold Ford Jr., who I shared with you before, who was a partner at
was a congressman.
Yeah, former congressman, but a partner at Solomon Smith Barney and MSNBC and teaching at NYU. He's done. He's done because his name was just smeared. And he had to come out and say, I've never groped a man or a woman. And I'm just sitting there like, wait a minute. Are we at this point now?
Yeah, because, look, listen, if I say Ted Hicks punches midgets and kicks nuns down the stairs, and you go, that is ridiculous, who's going to buy it? You're going to wake up tomorrow, and before you can open your morning paper, if, you know, they don't have papers anymore, you can open up your morning app to read the morning paper, and as you make your coffee, it's going to be 10 million hits about you punching orphans and pushing nuns down. So you just can't go, who's going to believe it and let it ride. You have to come out against it. And, you know, some of this stuff is just ridiculous that catches fire. I remember, this isn't about sex, but I remember a number of years ago, maybe 10 years ago, it might have been longer than that, there was a woman on Bill Maher, and she had to say that she wasn't a witch. And I was like, this is where we are, you know, and I thought that was ridiculous. Now you have to, you can't, it's the idea that you have to come out and state it like a declarative sentence, I did not touch men or women in the workplace. You know, that's something that should be safe for court after your lawsuit. You know what I mean?
You're right.
Meanwhile, the media makes you say something. It makes you, you know, guilty, because if you go, being silent is akin to being guilty. You know what I mean? Why won't he talk to the media? He hasn't said anything. What is he hiding? And before you know it, you're like, holy, how am I going to dig myself out of this hole?
Right. So what you're telling me, I mean, and I'm not saying anyone from the Me Too movement would say this, but it could be someone as reckless that you could have had a relationship with, they're unhappy with you, and they're like, he fondled me.
Yeah. Look, man.
And then next thing you know, you're guilty, and everyone's looking at you, and all your sponsors are running away.
That's the thing. Hell has no fury, right? And sometimes it's the idea that women lie, you know, and they don't want to believe that women can be vengeful or lie. You just want to assume every lady in these scenarios is telling you the truth. And, you know, it's going to get to the point where, you know, one of your sons is going to be accused of this. And it's going to be so many holes in it that it's going to begin to cast doubt on the whole movement, because it's always going to be that wild accusation that pushes it too far. Very, very McCarthy in the Senate talking about holding up a letter going, I have the names of communists in this letter, and people are going, give me a break, open the letter and let us see it, you know, kind of calling your bluff and ending the movement and whoever is at the top of it back then. But these days, you know, you don't need a leader of a movement. A lot of this is, I forgot what they call it, it's leaderless. So it's just because it springs up like wildfires on the internet, and everybody carries whatever accusations with you. I remember a number of years ago, this may have been 20 years ago, a gay guy accused Tom Cruise he said he was Tom Cruise's lover, and Tom Cruise was like, $100 million lawsuit. The next day, like a day or two later, the guy was like, oh, yeah, I'm retracting that. Yeah, that's not true. Me and Tom Cruise wasn't ever lovers. And he dropped the lawsuit. But it's this idea of money can silence you, or, you know, if you do, how could I phrase this? If you try and not give in to the mania, you'll get smeared, right? If you are then proactive of suing everybody, it looks like you're trying to silence the victim. So, I mean, the whole thing is just I was about to say clusterfuck, but the whole thing is just a hot mess.
Okay.
The victims need redress, right? People, and because people are making $40 million a year, you don't want them just perpetually feeding on women. The innocent parties here who've been smeared, so and so raped me on set. You're like, what the hell are you talking about? You know, they need to be what is it when you exonerated? They need to be exonerated. And I don't know how you do that. And in this environment, it's kind of dangerous disagreeing with the environment because it can be a mob scene. You know, I mean, you have famous women who are now spokesmen for this movement, and they're actresses, and that's a problem. I think it's a problem, you know, because they're not real people, and their bread and butter is emoting and getting you to believe them. You know, so I would rather see more actual victims of everyday strikes than actresses who seem to be hashing it out against each other over award show dress and seem to be forgetting the deeper point of what the hell is going on here. You know what I mean? The movement can be taken over, and then you can use them to undo elections. So now you didn't switch the seat, but you've got rid of a senator from Minnesota over this Me Too movement, right? Even though the lady has dubious ties to right-wing organizations, and a lot of people had reservations whether he should go. But
there's a lot of reservations nowadays.
But at the end of the day, the people of Minnesota's vote has just been upended. So what? You know what I mean?
You're right.
So then you can go, oh yeah. Well, what other seat looks flippable? Oh well, we'll just accuse him of.
Well, where was? So I got to ask you, where was the due process?
Yeah. Where was
it?
Where was it? That's a really good question. But like I told my friends, you know what? America loves a mob. I mean, the idea that you were going to have your fair day in court is ridiculous. I'll say it here. I have on my Facebook page when this whole thing went down with Trump. Congratulations, America! You're all niggers now. It's the idea that you've been doing this to black people for a while, with having been immune to it, and now someone's going to do the same ridiculous nonsense to you. And this is what's going on. It's this ridiculous nonsense of what the court is supposed to be versus what it is, right? So you've got people protecting people who may have raped people who are famous entertainers, right? They're being protected and making millions. Meanwhile, you've got, on the other end, people who look quite likely like they're just innocent, bad daters, don't know how to ask a woman out in the workplace. You know, you have those guys getting unceremoniously kicked out. You know, I just don't understand what the line is. I wish the line made sense. But at the end of the day, in your work environment, you can set your own dating laws, right? And if everybody's being wild and ridiculous and easily going to accuse anybody, and the unofficial national policy is we're not going to tolerate it, we're going to fire everybody. And not only in this environment, we're going to fire people in government, your senator, your congressman. I think it's asking for trouble. I mean, I think it can be used as a tool for sinister people in politics to upend the people's vote. So, yeah, Me Too, I think, is an important movement. I just think it's got so many kinks in it, it's like Bitcoin. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like Bitcoin. Bitcoin had a hell of a run last week, and now people are talking about it's a bubble. So what is Bitcoin? It's like, I don't know. What is this Me Too movement? I don't know. Is Bitcoin going anywhere? I doubt it. Is this Me Too movement going anywhere? I doubt it. But I hope they work the kinks out of that Bitcoin, and I hope they work the kinks out of this Me Too movement.
Hey,
because
how close?
Yeah.
Before we close up, how close were to having Senator Judge Roy Moore? How close?
Ooh, man, honestly, I think it was about 10 days. I think honestly it was about 10 days. They really ran in on him in the last month of that thing. But I think the last 10 days told the tale. And he made one incredible kind of like pronouncement. He was like, if God tells you not to vote for me, remember this? Don't vote for me. And I heard that. I was like, ooh, I got the same feeling when I heard Obama go, Donald Trump will never be president. I was, ooh. I just kind of like, once he said that, I was like, ooh, he just lost.
He just lost.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I think I give it was like a 10-day shift. And then he said that, like, within the last 2 days of the election, and I knew it was a wrap. But,
what's your feeling on the fact that all of these black politicians were being dispatched down there to organize the black vote, and it turned out that 98% of the black woman and 93% of the black man voted for Doug Jones? Are they still taking our vote for granted? I'd say yes.
Yeah, I think they're absolutely taking our vote for granted. But, you know, I also look at that 93% black guy. First of all, the chairman of the DNC, I forget his name, the Hispanic gentleman.
Yeah, Tom Perez.
Perez, right, Tom Perez. He comes out and he bigs up black women on Twitter. No mention of black eyes. You got 93% of them gave you your vote. They get a finger. Do they really? All right. So you big up black women. Okay, great, fine. What if black men and black women were always going to vote this way? What if the tiny shift came in some other group? Because, mind you, we always vote that way. It's not like we dropped off. I mean, you're not going to do much better than 98% and 93%, right? So what are they saying? We were going to vote at 60%? We always come out and vote in like the low to mid 90s, always, right? So maybe some other group shifted and they gave us credit for it because they couldn't say about this other group. That's my conspiracy theory. So I'm sitting here trying to figure out what group would have moved from Doug Jones. And I'm thinking maybe some of these religious people. White religious knuckleheads, but you can't give them credit. You wouldn't be able to.
Roy Moore's people was calling him Abortion Jones and all of this. It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was really crazy. But I got to tell you, you know what I love the most? Charles Barkley, because he's just sitting down there like, listen, Alabama, I'm going to be out here working with you folks because they don't think we're that stupid. And I'm just like, ooh.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're at the point where you can see the racial divide. You can see it. White males were going with Roy Moore. Anyone else?
Look, this is the problem with the Democratic Party and the black vote. Black people keep voting. It's the same. The Democratic Party had the same issue with black voters as the Republican Party had with evangelical voters, right? The evangelical voters vote like high numbers all the time for the Republican Party, hoping that they'll get church in schools, you know, and all this kind of ridiculous stuff. They're never going to get that. Black people vote not high 90s with the Democratic Party in hopes that they'll get social fairness, police. What's the word? Social justice reform, right? Police misconduct issues, fairness from banks, just these kind of things. Be treated fairly, and the Democrats don't deliver, but they
never deliver.
No, they never deliver, but they keep getting these votes.
They show up in the church every 4 years.
Yeah, every 4 years. Remember Hillary Clinton and Mothers of the Movement?
Yes.
Since the end of the election, you ain't seen any of them.
No.
What happened to that movement?
I want to ask you, Shawn, how bad of a candidate was Hillary Clinton?
We are in this situation because of Hillary Clinton and the games they played. You know what I mean? This is essentially the house burning. So if I went and got, a container of gas and matches, and I'm smoking in the garage, and I cause a fire, that is on me, right? If that fire burns down the city, that is still on me. So what they did, the city has caught fire. The fire that they caught that they thought they could control, play these election games, get her the nomination, and then get her the presidency, didn't turn out the way they planned, right? The people who should have ran, they kept away, thinking that she was going to run across the weakest candidate the world has ever seen, not counting that she was the most unliked candidate the world had ever seen. You get Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is setting the place on fire, and you handed him the matches. She was, and this is another thing about Democrats. They don't want to acknowledge that.
Yep.
Black men say in droves that she was a bad candidate, and they ignored us and bigged up black women like black women are all you need for the black community. And even then, she had trouble with the young black community with that whole what's the famous quote? We're all, I'm about to say young savages. I've listened to Fine Young Cannibals earlier, a group. But
with the hot sauce?
Oh, yeah, hot sauce in her bag. Come on now.
Oh, my God.
It's just, she just knew, look, there's confidence and then there's hubris, right?
Right.
So she just knew this was hers, and how dare you get in her way. She was very, Django Unchained about it. She was very, like, Hillary of the Manor about it. And people were going, you got problems. And she was kind of ignoring good counsel because Donald Trump was a spectacle.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I don't know. I just think this is the first year. We've got 3 more to go. They have the House, the Senate, and the presidency. They have the court, the Supreme Court. I was telling people before, I don't see how they just don't legislate the Democrats out of power forever. And it looks like they could do it, but it looks like they will overplay their hand. I mean, here in Virginia, they had a 13-seat lead in the delegate. It might have been more.
Yeah.
And now it's 50-50.
Wow.
Now it's 50-50 because, they always overplay their hand. They always go too far. Not everybody wants, this tax bill. It looks bad. Now everybody wants their Trump care. That looks worse. So, but at the end of the day, I think he's good for America because only the really poor and the blacks were regularly getting hammered, and everybody else was told you don't get stuff because of these groups. And now you see what happens when they're in power. They're gonna show you exactly why your group, poor white people, are still poor white people, and it's not because any other brown people have that money. I mean, they're about oligarchs and other ridiculousness. So, wow, the whole year has been a crazy year. Donald Trump, sexual harassment to sexual assault. Every now and then Hillary Clinton popping up to take like spitball shots at Donald Trump. It's just, the media is just absolutely at him. They're like perpetually on him and his family. I don't know, man. They make him look like the victim to his base.
Yeah, they do.
What I mean?
They do. They do.
I mean, they're his base. They don't have a problem with any of the stuff he said or done so far. So, you're just throwing hissy fits at this point.
Dude, we got to get back together. We got to get back together, do something bi-weekly or something like that. I want to thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
And, I think I'm going to be calling you more often because your insight is so different and so vast that sooner or later we're going to get you with your own podcast. That's going to be my
love that, man.
2018.
I love that. Hey, man, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, man.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to all your listeners. And 2018, man, take no shorts. Like
all right, bro. Talk to you later.
Peace. Absolutely. Peace.